Thanks for joining me on Menopause Unscripted. Remember, the change is just another beginning. Thank you for joining us today. I am here with Leona Fallas. She is the Assistant Clinical Director at the Center for Healthy Sex in Los Angeles. She is a licensed marriage and family counselor and treats all individuals and families with sexual dysfunctions. And she has a special love for people who are recovering from different addictions or trauma. Well, thank you so much for joining me. We've had a little bit of a difficult start here, so thank you for bearing with me.
I'm so glad to be here.
Before we came on set, we were talking about vaginas. I mean, because as one does. And we were also talking about the disparity between couples when we have somebody who has high libido and someone in a couple who has low libido. Can you kind of walk us through what that means and what it may implicate for a relationship?
For sure. When it comes to couples, we know opposites attract, right? So you have a pursuer distancer, you have someone with an anxious attachment attracted to someone with an avoidant attachment.
Oh, that's me. Sounds so familiar.
And so in the same vein, we have high libido, low libido pairings. Okay. In like a heteronormative, like if we'll just use that context for one moment, more likely for the male to be the high libido partner and the female to be the low libido partner, but not always the case.
Sure.
And so this is something that is like the number one reason that would be why a couple would come in for sex therapy.
And when may that be more problematic in life cycles? Because we both know, but I don't think like the world at large knows, like when different times of life that really may show up.
For sure. So if we think of arousal as a car that needs to move and we have a gas system and a brake system,
sure.
Some people are going to have a more sensitive gas and some people are going to have a more sensitive brake. If you have a sensitive brake and a low libido, then times of stress are probably going to be more likely to be exasperating that or having a low libido for you. Okay. So times of transition that we think about are pre and postpartum, perimenopause and menopause, but also life cycle changes. So that could be empty nest or retirement, just anytime there's a big disruption.
Career change.
Yeah.
No, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And in terms of when it may flip and you may have someone who goes through high libido changes and say that's the woman, like we already said that low libido is usually a woman, but when may that be that the script is flipped?
So high libido, low libido actually doesn't impact how sensitive your gas or your brakes might be.
Okay.
And we also have this thing, the difference between spontaneous desire and responsive desire. So like arousal and libido is such a complex picture. That is also often disconnected from like orgasm. Like someone could have a really sensitive gas and become aroused pretty quickly and like interested in sex, but sometimes really struggle to get to orgasm or even have anorgasmia and be like unable to orgasm. So
sure.
Like the picture is so complex. But for a person who has like spontaneous desire, they would be able to experience arousal or interest or excitement in sex without a lot of external stimulus. So they don't need something sexy to be happening.
Sure.
They can spontaneously go, that sounds exciting for me. Now I'm going to go seek that out or initiate something or pursue that, right? Where someone who has responsive desire, they probably need a sexy context in order to even be considering like some form of sexual activity. So this can cause a lot of conflict between couples. Something I like to tell clients is like, honking a boob is not sufficient to be initiating sex, right? And like, it sounds like a joke.
Oh, it's not. It's 100% that. Definitely, yeah.
When we think of like the foreplay involved in early dating, right? You're texting for 3 days, you know a date's coming up, then you're taking like an everything shower, you're getting excited, then there's a dinner, there's romance, you come back to the room, it's like, will they, won't they, right? There's like 3 days of foreplay.
Right.
You compare that to like the 2 seconds of honking a boob, like which of these contexts is going to be more exciting for someone who has a responsive desire.
And that's the responsive, right?
Yes, responsive.
Can you explain the other type of desire so that we kind of know
for
like the rest of the conversation what we're talking about?
Spontaneous desire is like good to go, ready to go, like the wind blows and they're like, what's going on? What? And everyone has a different libido response when it comes to stress. Some people during the most stressful periods of their life, that's when they're the horniest. They're like, this is how I relieve stress. This is like what is interesting to me in these moments. So like a huge part of sex therapy is just explaining to people that you're normal. You're both normal. It's okay to have responsive desire. It's okay to have spontaneous desire. It's okay to be horny all the time when nothing's happening. It's okay to only be horny with those 3 days of foreplay that we're talking about in early dating. Knowing like who you are and what you want and how to communicate that to a partner is like sort of what it's all about.
And that communication can be so hard. It doesn't matter even if like this is what you do for your job.
For sure.
I mean, it's like you could do this professionally. That doesn't mean it translates to your personal life. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. It's like, you may be the expert, but like, doesn't mean there's still not a struggle, right?
Yeah, like there's something inherent to the human condition, which is like bearing your soul is a vulnerable act. And like, you can practice vulnerability and it gets easier, but it doesn't get easy. Yeah. If that makes sense.
For sure. It's like, you can practice what you preach, but also there's still a struggle potentially there.
For sure. For sure.
And so like, do you find like a lot of the conversations are like being kind of the intermediary? So like person X, person Y, like figure out how to like communicate and being like the validator maybe of like the fact of like you said, both of these things are normal, but both people are valid in what they're experiencing?
That's such a good question. So if we're still talking about like a high libido, low libido pairing, typically in a consensual relationship, the low libido partner gets the final say, right? We're not having sex unless both people want to have sex, right? And typically the high libido partner is the one initiating. Okay. So then they're facing a lot of rejection.
That's hard.
So both people in this dynamic are suffering, right? We can probably assume why the low libido partner is suffering, right? They like don't like saying no to their partner. They're wondering like, is there something wrong with me or am I broken? Or maybe they're even sometimes volunteering to have sex that they don't want to have, or they're worried about abandonment. They're like, if I can't give this to my partner, like what
are they going to leave me?
Exactly. But the high libido partner suffers too. They're like doing the really vulnerable thing of initiating sex, knowing that more likely than not, they're going to face rejection. So often what we find with that is a burnt out pursuer. Like they're not even initiating anymore. Yeah. Right. So we do everything we can to try and flip the script. Okay. What can that look like? We take sex off the table. Okay. And actually, how do you define sex? We should start there.
I think that's a great question because it doesn't have to be penetration, right?
That's right. Yeah.
We started saying heteronormative, right? But this could be, it doesn't matter what two genders or lack of genders we're talking about.
1,000%.
Like there's still sex, right? So like how many different definitions of sex do you think? Because like it doesn't have to be just penetration, right?
1,000%.
You know, and it's like that could be like oral sex, like hands, no
manual
penetration.
Stimulation. Yeah, we take all genital touching off the table.
Okay, that's what you defined is all genital.
We take all genital touching off the table, and there's a lot of things that I might consider sex that don't involve genital touching, but just for the sake of like the conversation and flipping the script, we're taking genital touching off the table, and we're looking at the 5 gears of physical touch.
Okay, so please explain. I have not heard this before.
Okay, good. So a little bit about my background. I was raised in a Jewish Orthodox community, and I'm still Jewish, not as practicing, and my family's also Middle Eastern. Okay, so think like pretty sex negative and like pretty rigid. Okay. So gear 1 is something I would do in front of like my Orthodox Middle Eastern grandma, which is like holding hands with my partner on a couch. Okay. Right? Kind of affectionate, but no one's calling that sex by any definition. Sure. Right? Okay. And then let's think of gear 5 as sex, whatever that means to you. Oral sex, penetration, whatever. Okay. We have these gears in between. So we took sex off the table. The pursuer's burnt out. Mm-hmm. So we need the non-pursuer, the low libido partner, to start initiating these other forms of physical touch. So gear 2 is like playful touch. Okay. Playful touch is like strip poker or naked twister.
Okay.
Or have you ever seen those dice where one is like an action and one is a body part?
Yes, I have.
Like sex dice.
Yes.
Playful.
Okay.
Playful touch, right? Licking a foot is like kind of erotic, but maybe not sex.
Your partner's foot is the grossest thing you've ever seen. I just had this look, and I'm sorry, honey, if you're watching this, but like, he knows his feet are just terrifying. And I just like was like, no way in hell. Sorry that I was like ever.
And you deserve to have hard limits. Yeah. Yeah.
That is a hard limit.
Roll again. Roll again.
Okay. I just died. I'm like, oh my God, never in a million years. Rolling again. I'm rolling again. Sorry, I'm laughing. Sorry. Rolling again.
Roll again. That's playful touch.
Okay.
That's gear 2, right? Gear 3 is sensual touch.
Okay.
So this is like naked oil massage.
Okay.
Taking a shower together.
All right.
How is a low libido partner supposed to feel comfortable initiating a shower with their partner if they're like, oh my God, we haven't had sex in 3 weeks and he's so sexually frustrated, and if I invite him in the shower with me, he's going to think we're having sex and I'm going to have to say no, and then he's going to be frustrated at me and we're going to be far apart, right?
Right.
So it's why you need to take like sex off the table.
Okay.
And when you do that and you start to create like a safe environment for the low libido partner to be initiating like playful and sensual touch with their partner, now all of a sudden this burnt out pursuer is starting to feel a bit more desired, right? A bit more connected.
The other person's feeling safer.
And the other person's feeling safer. Okay. And now we're getting an environment that is like more conducive to eroticism, right? And now we get to start talking about like, okay, now what turns you on? What turns you off? How honest can you be about that with yourself? And how honest can you be about that with someone else? Because that absolutely changes throughout the life cycle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something I talk to patients about all the time. They come in and sex is painful for all variety of reasons. Yeah. And they're terrified of penetration. They also may not know like what turns them on anymore. They might be coming to see me in a later life stage, and maybe they're saying like, I'm trying to re-enter intimacy, and they don't even know what turns them on anymore. So we start with like external touch, like self-touch, and it's like, what turns you on that is not penetration? And if you can't communicate that with yourself, how you communicate that with the partner?
1,000%.
So that's a lot of times where like when I come in, that's where we start.
You know, a majority of vulva owners do not orgasm from internal stimulation or from penetration, right? So if later in the life cycle someone is like, well, like penetration is not what gets me off, like you're in good company. That's a majority of people feel that way, right? But this isn't something a lot of people talk about. So there's this mentality of like, oh, but that should get me off because that's what's happening in porn, or that's what's happening in the fantasy novel I'm reading, or that's what my partner thinks should get me off, or whatever. Yeah.
Speaking of turn-ons in fantasy novels, do you have
continue
segue? Is like reading eroticism or like listening to audio porn anything that you ever suggest
for sure
your patients?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of erotica.
Okay.
I think there is such a big difference between visual pornography and erotica. There's a part of our brain that when we're watching porn, we don't know that that's fiction, right?
Fair. I've never thought of it that way, but
right?
Sure.
Like we know intellectually that it's fake, but there's a part of us that doesn't. And if you think about like, before the internet, if you lived in like a village 1,000 years ago, how many naked bodies could you see in your lifetime if you made it like your life's mission, right? Maybe like 100, maybe. And now you could see that in like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Some scenes.
Right? Like, so I'm so pro sex work. I think that's real work. And pornography definitely has its time and place, but it's not for everybody. And the good porn you usually have to pay for. So whatever you're getting for free, searching on those popular websites, especially for women, especially for queer folks, it's not made for you.
Sure.
As someone who's maybe prone to feeling like unsafe or overwhelmed, the internet pornography can be really overwhelming.
Sure,
right?
especially like if you have like, different triggers that are maybe have to do with violence or something.
1,000%. A trauma history. But erotica, on the other hand, really engages the imagination, right? You're having to fill the gaps in your brain with the story. But also, people generally have a bunch of things that turn them on in fantasy that they'd never want to do in real life. And those things tend to be more arousing when you're thinking about them or reading about them than when you're like seeing them. Sometimes seeing them can be really horrifying. Like Emily Nagoski in her book, Come As You Are, she says like one of the most common female fantasies is sex with like a bunch of men. And then
I thought you were going to say sex with a vampire, and I was like, wow.
Vampire's up there.
Zayden, sorry. Everyone. I'm like trying to like keep my face like from twitching too much because I'm like, all the dark arts.
For sure.
Carry on, please.
No, but there's all those things that are exciting to think about. Like, I remember Twilight, where he sneaks in her window and he's like, I can't resist you. And it's like, that's so hot in theory. But then in real life, it's like restraining order.
If some guy snuck in my window, I would like lose my mind. I close my windows at night every night because I'm terrified of that actual thing.
And that's another thing about libido is like fear is an amplifier. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, it is also an off or a break. And that's the power of like erotica or fantasy, that you get to use this as an amplifier without that safety part of you kicking in. So yeah, erotica can definitely be a part of like that sexual exploration, as long as people know like it's not a one-to-one. The things that turn you on when you're reading or masturbating or maybe things you want to try in real life, but also possibly not.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Like BDSM might sound good to you, but then you're like, I get handcuffs on, and you're like, hard no.
Yeah.
Like that triggers fear and not like pleasure or
for sure
like arousal.
And there's a lot of things that vanilla people can borrow from BDSM and kink, like talking up front about what are your yeses and what are your nos and your hard limits.
Mm-hmm. I've never heard of the red, yellow, green system. Can you please enlighten me and like explain what this means?
Okay, so a typical safe word like watermelon is a binary system, right? Yes or no.
On, off.
Yes.
Okay.
Red, yellow, green. Red is no.
Okay, hard pass.
Yellow is, ooh, I'm approaching discomfort, but I still want to stay in this moment.
Okay.
Can we shift or can we talk or what's happening here? And green is like, I'm loving what you're doing, keep going.
Okay.
Right? So this gives words to people in a very vulnerable moment who maybe are trauma survivors and have parts of their body that are triggering. Let's say receiving oral sex is activating for a trauma survivor, right? But they don't want to take it completely off the table. And they're trying to like introduce it slowly. A red, yellow, green system is something we can borrow from BDSM and kink to communicate to a partner what's happening in your body without having to like fully leave the moment and like explain. Right?
So you're saying like green versus watermelon, or are you saying like yellow versus watermelon? Or
red
like
would be watermelon.
Okay.
If watermelon is like no.
Right.
Green is like, this is great, keep going. I'm like so happy with what's happening here.
All right.
And yellow is like, I'm approaching
discomfort.
Red or discomfort.
But you're using those words
versus
you're using
like red, yellow, green.
Okay. So you're using those words like not like, and so it's like very like clear, but using those as opposed to just a red word. Okay. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, you know, we've got somebody who maybe is like trauma, and we're talking about it, but in terms of like pain, how would you then apply it to somebody who maybe is dealing with like a vaginal pain issue?
Oh my God, this is such a good question. I just saw the most fabulous film. It's called Lady Parts.
Are you talking the podcast or the film?
The film.
Okay. There's a podcast too. That's why I like which one.
It's about a young woman's experience with vaginismus and other pelvic pain and her experience with dilators and putting in a dilator and taking it out and replacing it with her partner's penis to have penetrative sex for the first time and whatever. Just talk so much about this experience of like having pain with sex and how vulnerable it is to talk about that with somebody else. Pain is going to really change for somebody over the course of the life cycle, right?
It's not always the same.
It's not always the same.
Especially if you're trying to get treatment.
For sure.
Hopefully trying to get treatment.
Yeah. And like all chronic conditions, like you have flare days and then you have days where things are fine, right? So sometimes going into a sexual encounter, like, ooh, okay, this is a high pain day, like penetration's off the table. Sure. But sometimes you don't know.
No,
right?
until you try.
Until you try.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to work on with my clients is like, can you talk about what's true for you sexually with your partner? Or have you been socialized to think that you're supposed to just take it?
Like grin and bear it.
Grin and bear it. Yeah. Like once you get past a certain point, do you feel like, oh, it's too late to say no?
Sure. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true for so many people. And like with that, it's like then you have again the person who then feels rejected, which that's hard also. And I think we think so much about the person experiencing the pain, but we forget about the rejection of the other partner.
Totally.
And that's a very valid experience.
1,000%. This is like the partner who's being rejected might be less likely to initiate sex or engage in sex because they anticipate that it could lead to a disconnected moment.
Sure.
So a huge part of sex therapy is like we decenter penetration. Mm-hmm. We even decenter orgasm. Not because your orgasm isn't important.
No, but you just need to have experience.
Also, like, the more you try to chase an orgasm, the more elusive it becomes. So by decentering orgasms, we're actually having more orgasms. That's part of why we decenter it. And we try to focus on intimacy, connection, and pleasure.
Okay.
So if penetration is sometimes painful because somebody is going through menopause and they're starting hormones, but they're at some stage of the process where it's still sometimes painful, right? Mm-hmm. But they still want to try and have penetrative sex sometimes. We encourage them to choose a connected activity that they can transition into if sex becomes painful.
Could you give us some examples? Examples? Sorry, that just came out wrong, but you understood what I meant.
Yeah, for sure.
I got too excited about saying it.
Okay, so what do you know about aftercare?
Not much.
Okay, this is something else we can borrow from like BDSM and kink. Let's say in the BDSM and kink community, if you have a scene or whatever, a sex session that involves bondage or whatever, then there's a period of aftercare.
All right.
Aftercare is when you check in on each other, provide emotional support for each other, have like sensual touch, pillow talk. For some people, this is like the best part of sex.
Sure. This is the afterwards.
The afterward, the afterglow. Okay? Like we love the afterglow.
Yeah, this is when you take a nap together after sex, maybe.
You take a nap together, you're chatting, you're tracing little fingers on their body, right? Okay. You're like talking about hopes and dreams and whatever. This is not like going back through the sexual experience and being like, did you like this? Let's do this better. This is not like the postmortem.
Okay.
We don't want to do that in bed. This is like a vulnerable, intimate moment.
Okay.
Right? So what does aftercare or the afterglow look like? Just depends on the couples.
So please tell us more about what you mean about like the aftercare.
Afterglow.
Afterglow. I was like, whichever it was. Both.
Afterglow is this like super connected moment, typically after sex, right? But let's say you are someone who struggles with pain with penetration, right? When you have to call off penetration because it hurts, and maybe you don't want any more sexual activity, maybe you're done for the night. Okay. You might not want your partner to like then roll out of bed, put their pants on, pull their laptop out, and like go to work. Right?
You want them to stay with you.
You want them to stay with you in that moment. Right? So like what that means depends on the couple. Okay. Could be like cuddling and watching a show. Could be talking. The New York Times has these like 36 questions to fall in love. You could do like a little question game.
I've never seen that.
Yeah. Or take a bubble bath together. Or cook together. It doesn't matter what you do. You should like do a puzzle together.
A moment of like staying connected.
Making sure it's a moment of staying connected. Okay. Yeah.
That's really important. And like no one has ever described that to me. So I'm like, I like that. We're bringing that home, literally. So can we talk a little bit? We started talking off camera a little bit about like different medications, and like I just want to not dive into all of them, but literally talking about like hypoactive desire disorder. Can you just kind of talk about not so much the medications, but more of like what these different conditions are, because I think people are seeing them on social media, but they don't actually know what they mean. And I want to kind of break some of the like TikTok doctor stuff so we actually know what this means.
Here's what I know. If somebody comes into individual therapy or couples therapy for low libido or pain with sex, I know that our sexual functioning is biopsychosocial. Okay. So there's a biology element that I cannot treat in psychotherapy, right? And that means we need like a trusted team of doctors and physical therapists to like do the exams that I cannot do in the therapy room, right?
Do the inside stuff.
The inside stuff.
You're not doing the inside stuff at your place.
Yeah.
We're talking about like the biopsychosocial model of treating somebody who is coming to see you for a low libido issue.
Yeah, the first two questions I'm going to ask are, have you talked about this with your gynecologist? And have you been assessed by a pelvic floor physical therapist? Okay. If not, those are the homework that they're going to leave that first appointment with. We cannot treat medical things in therapy without a treatment team, right?
Sure.
We can do there's CBT that helps with hot flashes. There's CBT that helps with insomnia. Like, we can do therapy on certain symptoms. Mm-hmm. But that is not a replacement for like medical treatment and support, sure. Right? Clients find a lot of benefit from antidepressants during menopause, okay. From hormone treatment, from medications for libido. We're a society that talks really openly about men as they age taking Viagra, but mm-hmm. we, for some reason, treat women who later in the life cycle who want to take medication for libido as if that is something so taboo.
Sure. I mean, the FDA doesn't even really acknowledge much of that, right? Or it's so difficult to get, like, just testosterone. Like, women have testosterone too, and just getting that is like jumping through 8 million hoops.
Oh my God, some women with insurance are paying $300 for estrogen on a monthly basis.
Well, not estrogen, but testosterone.
That's insanity.
It's insane. Yeah. I'm like, premature raise of the hand, but testosterone, it's like $250 a month for testosterone. Like, why? Oh, I don't understand. And like, if it was a man, it'd be treated yesterday.
So we need like the joint treatment team approach. Mm-hmm. At Center for Healthy Sex, we work really closely with the referring physician or clinician, because like, I need to know what has been ruled out or what's happening medically. Like, if someone comes and tells me they have pain with sex, that could be 1,000 different things.
Right.
That could be like vaginal atrophy. That could be pudendal neuralgia. That could be vaginismus. That could be like rosacea or dermatological condition, or they're allergic to their detergent. Like, so some of the stuff we do in therapy is standard. Like, it's not going to matter very much, but some of it is going to be deeply personal to like what's happening to someone medically.
Right. And it's like, there is like that two side. Like, I don't do CBT, but I need to work with someone like yourself to like deal with, like, I'm dealing with like all the pain issues, but I can't deal with past trauma.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how often trauma experiences come up in physical therapy. And this may not even be like vaginal stuff. It's like, this comes up with like treating someone's hips.
For sure.
And like,
trauma lives in the body.
It lives in the body. And people will come in and it's like, we're releasing their hips, for example, and all of a sudden we have tears and crying.
Yeah.
And like, people like that are literally apologizing to me, and I'm like, you do not need to apologize for this. Like, literally,
so powerful.
Like, I need to work with, like, do you have a therapist? Otherwise, I'm referring one to you. And like, that's when I always refer to you guys. It's like, you're close by. I'm like, you're in LA. This is where you go. So thank you for providing that service to our community.
Yeah. It's, like, one of the most powerful parts of therapy, I think, is like knowing yourself better. Like, in a psychoanalytic view, we would call it like making the unconscious conscious.
Okay.
But like, before we're able to explain something to a partner of like what happens in our body, we need to sort of know that for ourselves, right? So it sounds to me like people are really discovering what's stored in their body on your table.
It can be with like a trauma situation, for sure.
Which is really powerful. There's a lot of like at-home movement that people, like, we have physical exercises that people can do, not for physical therapy necessarily, but for like shaking up the emotion in the body and seeing what is stored there.
Interesting. Is this part of like what I see like online that's like somatic, like yoga, or is that something different?
Can be.
Okay.
Yeah. Could be doing like some cat cows. Could be like blowing hot air into your hands and rubbing them together to create heat.
I'm like, interesting. What does that do? I've never seen that one.
This is like, all right, so now we're generating like life force energy, right? And then you would start to touch different parts of your body in like a loving, intentional way.
Okay.
And seeing what comes up. And eventually you're going to move on to like erogenous zones.
Okay.
And maybe there's some emotion that's being stored in your breast or your hips or your vulva. And if you're like able to touch there with intention, maybe you can bring that emotion to the surface in a safe space at home. So it's not just coming out during sex or during physical therapy or times when you're not expecting it.
And is that like where you maybe recommend to someone that they start if they're trying to like re-enter a sexual like phase, like at any life stage, but like if they're kind of going like, I want to re-enter this, that would be like a good place to start.
You start solo.
Okay.
You start solo. And you don't put pressure to orgasm. You start with discovery.
Okay.
So this is like, you get a mirror and you look at your vulva.
How many people have never looked at their vulvas? I try to get people to do this and they're like, I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? It's your body. And they're like, I don't want to look down there. I'm like, I need you to. No, they won't do it. Do you think it's like maybe like a trauma response?
Or shame.
Okay.
Or fear. Like, we live in a society that absolutely villainizes women's bodies.
Yeah, this is our privates. It's a no-touch zone, right?
Exactly.
For little boys, they're like diddling with themselves at 2, and girls, it's like, nah. And so you're still like, this isn't it all. Like, no one looks here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think that's really
there's some women, like, the only vulvas they've seen are in pornography, and a lot of those people have had surgery or other, right? Other altercations, and they think that they don't measure up, and you add aging and childbirth and all this stuff on top of that.
Right.
People have a lot of shame about their sexual body.
Right. And it's like, and it changes, right? Like, it's like the actual atrophy. But even like women will come to me after they've had a baby and they're like, do my labia look normal? And I'm like, listen, they look totally normal to me, but I don't know if it's where you were before childbirth because I didn't know your vulva then. After you start doing kind of self-touch and moving to more erotic self-touch, we were talking about too about like looking at our vulvas.
Yes.
And like, so you ask people to do that. And then how do you overcome that fear with so many people? Because I find so many people are maybe fearful or kind of shame.
It might take months of talking about that in therapy and like working up to it.
Okay.
So anytime in therapy that we're doing an exposure, here's what we're thinking about. You have a comfort zone, right? Whatever area you feel calm and neutral and safe in. Then you have like an overwhelm zone.
Okay.
We're not trying to push you into overwhelm, right? We're looking for the sweet spot between a comfort zone and an overwhelm zone that we call like a growth zone.
Yellow?
Just yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe this means maybe you're not comfortable whipping out a mirror and like looking at your vagina right away.
Okay.
That's okay. Maybe when you get out of the shower, you look yourself in the mirror before you put your towel on and you're just looking at yourself from the front, right? Maybe we can like find ways that are comfortable that you can like build up to. That's the same with the touch, right? The touch you do at home.
Sure.
When someone's like blowing heat into their hands and touching their body, where are you comfortable doing that? Maybe that's your arms and your legs.
Might not be private parts.
Might not be private parts. Maybe we're like working up to erogenous zones, right? Again, like when you're chasing an orgasm, that makes an orgasm elusive. So with the self-touch at home or with a partner, the goal is not orgasm, the goal is pleasure.
Makes sense.
So you're just asking yourself, does this feel good? If it doesn't feel good, what do I need for it to feel good, or do I want to break for right now?
Okay.
And learning to like notice what's happening to your body and respond to your body cues. And again, we're having genital touching off the table in terms of partner interactions, right? So partner interactions are romantic, sensual, and playful.
Okay.
When you're ready to bring in more like erotic physical touch with a partner, the place I recommend starting is mutual masturbation. Do you know what that means?
I do.
Yes. Okay. That can be really vulnerable for some people.
I can
to like watch and be watched vulnerably while you like touch yourself or bring yourself to orgasm. It's like a pretty vulnerable thing, right? But hypothetically, if you've been doing self-touch and learning your body, you have a lot to show your partner in terms of like the ways you like to be touched and the ways you like to get yourself off, right? What better way to teach them than to let them
educational
watch.
experience.
Yeah, an educational experience. If that is really uncomfortable for some person, then we can find something else. Maybe they've been doing like sensual massages and that can be escalated. That like taking that next step is where we're really going to like cater it to the couple and what's happening for them.
And so if you've got someone who's been doing self-touch on themselves and like they maybe want to like take that to the next step. Yeah. We talked off camera a little bit about a few things that we like, but what are a couple tools or like your favorite number one like tool that you might recommend?
Great questions. If someone is having pain with sex, then maybe from their physical therapist, someone like you, or maybe elsewhere they have tools that are recommended to them, like dilators, like the kiwi. Those could be a fine place to start. I do recommend, if someone's open to it, exploring like vibrators or other like sort of self-pleasure tools.
Sure.
But there's also something I think very powerful about exploring your own sexual body with just your own hands. Like some people who have a spiritual practice, who believe that God made the human form, believe God made humans' hands that can touch their own genitals for a reason. That like self-pleasure and masturbation is a God-given gift.
Okay.
So you don't need any sort of special apparatus in order to explore your sexual body.
I suppose for some people, like having a tool might actually be like a lesser conduit, right? Because now we've got this tool versus my hand. Maybe that's like almost like a barrier for some people.
Some people find it unnatural or dissociative, but some people find it more approachable. So this is such an annoying therapy answer, but it really just depends.
Everyone's like, why can't you just give me an answer? I need you to tell me what to do. All right. You mentioned the kiwi. I love the kiwi.
I love the kiwi.
Kiwi's great. If you don't know this, I will totally PSA this. The kiwi by the Pelvic People is one of my favorite things because it looks kind of goofy. It doesn't look sexual, if you would agree. And so I think that one's great. I also love Taboo's Pearl, which was made for external. Both of them can be used for like erotic massage or like nothing having to do with genital stimulation at all. But both of them are meant for external stimulation. So I think they're a really great place to start if we're staying away from penetration. A really great thing. And I have no problem giving that PSA because I love both companies so much. Is there anything else that you would like to like add to this conversation in terms of like how to be approaching non-penetrative sex and like keeping us in that green to yellow zone that we should be aware of?
So going back to these like high libido, low libido pairings, traditionally before they come into sex therapy, the high libido partner is the gas and the low libido partner is the brakes. So when we're introducing these other forms of touch, it's really important to flip the script on that.
Okay.
So you want the high libido partner to be the one who's responsible for being like, okay, if genital touching's off the table, they're in charge of enforcing that.
Okay.
Or like, and that the low libido partner is the one in charge of like initiating or doing the vulnerable thing of being like, hey, tonight should we? Or like, okay, I'm ready to take the next step. For the low libido partner to be able to be the gas, this can be like a very freeing experience and it takes a lot of the pressure off. And when the high libido partner actually enforces that and says no or sets the brakes, this can create like a ton of safety and just release a lot of pressure for the low libido partner.
Like the frustration of the other person being like, but I want to, which might actually be
which increases desire, right? Yeah, exactly.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for coming on, Leona, and just giving us the most educational and entertaining. I mean, we shouldn't say this is entertaining, but it is.
It's been so much fun.
We've had a really great time. I can't wait to have you on again.
Can't wait.
If you have all enjoyed this conversation, please join us for other episodes. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on all the podcast channels. And please come back another week to see Leona or one of our other fabulous guests. And with that, can I just ask you to give us your final thoughts today?
Sure. The last thing I will say is, if you are a high libido partner and you're a burnt out pursuer, you're feeling frustrated that your partner is perhaps low libido or the frequency with which you have sex feels a little bit out of your control, here is my advice to you. There are certain contexts that are conducive to eroticism, and you can create a sexy context. So what does that mean? Clean the house, do the dishes, turn off the big light, the overhead light, light a candle, turn on the lamps, cook dinner, turn the music on, create like a relaxing home environment for your partner to come home to, maybe take a shower together or give them a massage, and then cuddle and don't put any pressure for sex. Maybe something happens that night, maybe it doesn't, but you're allowing space for their nervous system to feel calm and relaxed with you. And the more frequently you're having contexts that are conducive to eroticism, the more likely something fun and sexy is to happen between the two of you. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. And you guys all just actually got your little bit of a therapist advice there. I don't know if you realize that, but everyone who's wanting you to be told what to do, there you go. So enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have to end with the boring stuff. While I am a doctor, I am not your doctor. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. If something in today's episode resonated with you, please bring this to your own healthcare team and self-advocate. We always are promoting that. I cannot wait for you to join me on next week's episode of Menopause Unscripted for another hot topic.